Right, welcome back to another Beard Invades. This week we've got Heidi from Whitehall Pottery. Now, I've, actually, Heidi was meant to come on quite a while ago, but I think that particular day I was having some major internet connection problems. So, oh crap! Let's turn that off. Right, let's welcome Heidi in. How you doing?
Hello. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, excellent. Welcome to my little show. Like I was just saying, we were going to do this a while back, but I had some internet connections, so we finally got you on. So you've seen these before. Before we get into it, I'm just going to give a couple of shout outs to the people that have come jumped on that are in the chat, and then we'll crack on. Okay.
Perfect.
Right then. So we've got Doug Miller, Tommy's Workshop, Peter Corcoran, Sneaks Wall Art, Guy Prout. I always struggle with this because oh yeah, Whitebeard. My eyes go all weird. Andy H is returning. Barry Chitty, Wayne Bigfoot Woodcraft, Andy H is returning. I've said that, haven't I? Who else we got? Chris Spinning Wood Dodger, Stuart Ingrilu. Sorry, Stuart, if I've destroyed your name. Christine and Michael Heseltine, Steve Ellis, Tony Smith, Jennifer's Crafty Creations, Spirit and Bear. Okay, Brian at Holton. Right then, that's it so far. So, right, let's get into this. Have you frozen?
Nope, I'm still here. I can be very still. I didn't want to distract.
Okay, so I love pottery. I've never tried it.
No?
No, I've never tried it, and one day I might get to it. I did mention it to the wife a while back, a couple of years ago. She was like, "No, you've got too many interests. You've got too many hobbies." Because we've got this program in the UK called the Great British. Is it the Great
The
Pottery
throwdown.
Down?
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I just watch it all. I mean, I record it and then I just binge it all. I love it.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, one day I might have a go. You never know. So, for these people that don't know, Heidi does pottery, hence Whitehall Pottery. She does it at home. Is it your business, Heidi, or do you do this full time?
It's a side hustle, so I'm currently trying to navigate to that point where I can do it full time, but it's definitely it's taking over.
Yeah, and you'll need a bigger shop if you take any more work on.
Yes. Yeah, I'm outgrowing my space that I'm in right now.
So where did it all start? What got you interested in pottery?
Well, I started out as a sculpture major in college, always very interested in art, and started working with the clay medium through one of my ceramics classes and took a few of those ceramics classes, really enjoyed them. But in college, I had this idea that like functional work wasn't really all that interesting to me. So I was more doing like large scale, like welded pieces and, you know, environmental work where you've got more of an installation piece than you do have like something hanging on a wall or something on a pedestal. Um, and then when I graduated college, I I had a hard time finding work, so I ended up starting to do more like graphic design and that kind of thing, and moving more into like point of sale design and development. So a lot of like window features and displays for companies. Um, and I did that for like, I don't know, probably about 10, 15 years.
Oh,
And then I
wow.
had my son, and my husband was like, I think you need to get back to something that you love. So I got back into clay, bought a pottery wheel, started throwing. I've been throwing Carver six or will be six. And I've been actively pursuing functional pottery for probably, I would say, just about 4.5 years, and I've been selling my work for 3.
Okay. So functional pottery, for people that don't know, that's your cups and your plates and things like that that you can use. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
Yes. Yeah. So a lot of ceramic artists kind of fall into 2 different buckets. One being possibly just more something to look at, right? So a wall hanging or a display piece. Then there's the functional potters that maybe don't consider themselves artists, more consider themselves artisans that make very specific use items that are just repetitive, repetitive, repetitive. And then there's there's always like a gray area where people kind of fall in between. I kind of feel like I fall in between because I do some more sculptural work that also is functional. If
Mm.
you've ever seen like my cephalopod mugs and things that I make, those although are functional, they do have a sculptural element to them, and maybe you're not going to use that as your daily sipper. You might still drink out of it just for special occasions, but and there's the maker mugs that I make that are more sculptural too.
Yeah, I was going to mention those mugs because I saw them on your Instagram. The octopuses. Is it an octopus?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
really, really impressive. I mean,
Thank you.
um, there's some others. I think there was like badges that you were carving and you were putting on
Yep.
mugs as well.
Yeah, I've got some here since I'm in my studio. These are the ones that are kind of my bread and butter. It's got
Yeah.
our cityscape on the heart. I live in
Oh,
Pittsburgh, and our word for our city is very long, so we shortened it to PGH. That's our. I think that's also the call sign for our airport is PGH. So when you fly into Pittsburgh, so these are in a lot of gift shops around the city, and they sell really well. So those are more like filler for the kiln when I need to sell work.
so
But
do you have to? I mean, kilns. I was going to get to that in a bit, but they're expensive bits of kit, aren't they?
they
Um,
can be. Hmm.
yeah, and I suppose depending on the size of your kiln, you can't just throw a couple of cups or a couple of bowls in there. You've got to fill it right up, haven't you?
Yep. Yeah,
Suppose.
to be quite honest, it's an energy hog.
Yeah.
So I use an electric kiln. Some people use a gas kiln, but my process is 2 fire process. So I'll do what's called a bisque fire to prep the pieces, which only takes it to a certain temperature. That way I can glaze them. They're a little bit more sturdy to handle.
Yeah.
And then I will do what's called a glaze fire, which is basically taking um, a liquid and dipping your piece into it or spreading it with a brush and then letting it dry, putting it in the kiln, and it basically creates a glass coating around the
Yeah.
clay. The heat melts it
Yeah.
and fuses the 2 things together. So some potters only do 1 fire. Some potters will do a bisque fire and then they will do a gas fire. Or they will do a wood fire.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Seems really interesting. I mean, it must cost a lot. By the way, if anyone's got any questions, pop in the chat with a capital Q, and I'll do my best to see them. So it must cost a bit of money to start up. I mean, it's not a case of just buying a potter's wheel and some clay. Um, I suppose to practice, yeah, but the kiln and all the other stuff that you need, is it something that someone can just go and
Well, I think, when you start looking at wanting to do uh, to get into pottery, the best thing to do is to try it first. Like go to a potter, see if they'll let you play in clay. Maybe they might let you do some hand building. Maybe they'll even let you get on their wheel. just really see if it's something that you're really interested in doing. The second consideration, once you've tried it and if you fall in love with it, is space. So you need space to store your clay that is temperature controlled, so your clay doesn't freeze or dry out too quick. You need space for your tools, space for your wheel, space for a table of some sort to do your wedging on. You might want to do slab building, so you might want to look at space for a slab table or a slab roller. And then the other thing that you talked about is the kiln, right? So you need some kind of source, whether it's gas or electric, for your kiln, and a safe space to be able to fire your work. A lot of people, when they start out, they go to a community center or a college and take some classes to really see if that's something they want to invest in. It can be expensive, but you can also, if you look around, you can find things first that are secondhand, like from school districts that are discontinuing their program or upgrading to new equipment. Potters that have decided, they don't want to pot anymore, or a lot of things that I've found here, like my first kiln, I purchased secondhand from a woman who used to do slip casting in the 80s, which is really popular. She used to do slip casting, and then all her friends would paint porcelain.
Slip casting, that's where you've got a mold and you tip it rather than build it up, isn't it?
Yep.
Tip it in and empty it out. And
Yep.
yeah. I mean, that in itself is going to take a lot of space.
It sure can. So, like, I think less than the financial investment, it's more about the investment of studio space, right?
Yeah.
Like in my house, I have a spare bedroom that is my clay room, which is here, and then I have a small area in our basement to do glazing, and that's where my kiln is. And it's just, I fell in love with it, and it's definitely something that is my go-to for like an emotional outlet.
Yeah.
It's a creative outlet. It's one of those processes, I think, for makers that you're constantly looking for something that checks all the boxes. Like, does this fill a void for my problem solving? Does this allow me to experiment? Does this allow me to learn new techniques? Does this allow me to be able to be creative in different ways? Can I still be surprised by results? It's an amazing, fulfilling process.
It's not only a hobby, it's your passion.
Yes.
As well. Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
We've got a few more people that jumped in. Wayne the Wood Turner, Essential Handyman, Gaff.
Jamie's there.
JP's in. Circular Wood by Keith. Who else? My dad, actually, Whitebeard. So welcome, guys. Remember, if you've got a question for Heidi, proper questions, JP. I'm looking at you. Put them, stick them in the chat, and I'll do the best to find them. Okay. So, have you ever thought of if you had the space to encourage people to take up pottery, to maybe give lessons or share your knowledge? I thought of doing that.
Yeah, and that was pre-pandemic. That was the goal, was to be able to build out the space. Hey, Jake's here. Sorry. To build out the space to be able to bring on some students. And unfortunately, because of COVID, that kind of got put to the side, and I focused more on doing more batch pottery orders and custom work for people to offset the need for kiln fillage. But I mean, I don't know if you've seen any of my YouTube videos or the virtually crafty sessions. I've also done like online tutorials and things. So it's definitely somewhere that I really enjoy. Some potters hate the idea of like teaching people. They want it for themselves. It's their hobby. It's their outlet. But I definitely, like you said, it's more of a passion than just a
Yeah,
hobby.
yeah. I mean, anything like, I mean, that's something. It's like wood turning. It's not something that you can just pick up and try without having to spend a lot of money, on stuff. But if you've got someone that's got all that stuff, and they go just have a little taster, I think it might encourage people to, to take on the hobby. Is it a very popular hobby over in the States? Because I know the northern side of our little country. I mean, and the Midlands actually, it's quite big in those areas, pottery. Um,
Yeah.
so what?
Uh, it's definitely become more popular. I think just even in the last year or so, where people are really keen on learning, and there's I needed to buy a new kiln, and there was a shortage on being able to get one, which was really strange to me.
Yeah,
Just meant that they were making a lot of sales during the pandemic. A lot of people were trying to pick up new hobbies. Um, but it's definitely one of those things where I think, just like anything else, it's cyclical. Like, people get into it, they hang out for a minute,
yeah,
and they don't stick with it for too long. It's just kind of like, hey, this is a really fun thing to do for, 6 or 8 months. And
yeah,
then they sell off all their equipment. So it's an opportunity for you if you're
yes,
if
yeah,
you're looking, I would
yeah,
say wait like 8 to 10 months, and then start shopping the Facebook marketplace, because I'm sure a lot of these people that spent the last year in isolation investing in like leatherworking or different
yeah,
things, like
yeah.
there's going to be a sell off of equipment, I'm sure.
We've seen a lot of that in the maker community. Stuff coming up that on Facebook Marketplace and things like that, where people have gone back to work and they haven't got time now, and they think, oh my god, there's so many hundreds of pounds or dollars sitting there, and and then they sell it on. So um, it's good for us as makers. um, so virtual crafty. You've been on quite a few of those now, I think.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. One, two, three, four, five, six of them. I mean, do you enjoy doing those kind of lives?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with that crowd, right? Like,
Yeah,
there are a lot of turners in that crowd, so the kinship of the craft, it's so similar. It's just a different orientation and a different material, but it's the same thought process. Like, you have to think about your shape and where you want to go with it before
yeah,
you get your hands in it. You kind of have to have that planned out, so you know how much clay to put on the wheel. Just
yeah,
like if you're going to turn something, you're going to have to know how big of a block you need. But the one thing that's nice about pottery versus wood turning is that um, you have more of an opportunity for recovery if you mess something up.
yeah.
Uh, Whereas, like, if you've been spending 2 hours turning a big plate and you hit a crack and you
Oh
snap a piece off or whatever, you might be able to fill it with resin, but it's not really an opportunity for you to really correct it. And it's really funny with the virtually crafty events is hearing or seeing the comments where folks are like, she just threw 4 pieces in the amount of time that it takes me to set up my lathe. Um, so
yeah,
it is faster to get a vessel formed,
yeah,
but the process itself, because of the time it takes to dry it, then you have multiple sessions in the kiln before you get your final piece. It's weeks before you
yeah,
see your final result, whereas like turning, you get an opportunity to see your result pretty much same day.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think you're unique as far as the virtual crafty, because there's no one else that does pottery that's been on that show. I don't think is that.
I
I
don't
think
think
that,
so. We've had glass blowers.
yeah,
We've had sculptors like carvers. we've had a lot of really cool stuff come on. I'm not sure what yeah, Jamie, I have to draw. I'm not sure what Al's shtick is, but I love seeing what he comes up with for like it's always some like super off the wall thing, like making a grill or a smoker.
Which is it. I mean, it's brilliant. It's craft. So it doesn't matter what you do.
No, it really doesn't.
Yeah, you've got an hour to share your passion or your craft with the world. You know, it's great.
Yeah, it's so much fun to see what people are going to come up with, and even, you know, seeing what, I mean, there are quite a few turners that come on, but everybody has a different take on what they do, how they develop their strategy for doing their work, and the tools that they're using. I mean, you've got some people that have like every gizmo and gadget that you could possibly have for turning a vessel, and then there's other people that like they use one tool the whole time. They're just like, yeah, throwing down the gauntlet. Like, look what I did with this giant spoon.
I mean, I've been on a couple of times, I think. But I mean, anyone that knows my channel, they know that I don't do just one thing. I've got my finger in all sorts of things, you know, and that's what I like to do. But anyway, so where do you draw your inspiration from for your pieces, your projects?
Well, you know, the ones that I really do for myself are vessels that have a sculptural form on the side. So you've seen the elephant vases that I make probably, and even the silhouette pieces where I put an animal on the side. I love that. I love doing that just from a visual perspective. There's not really a whole lot of meaning behind it. It's just like I get a lot of pleasure out of like coming up with the form and then attaching something to it, and the whole process. But my favorite part is doing a raku fire of those pieces too. I just feel like it's a place where I have no control.
Is that in a fire pit?
It is in a trash can.
And then you put like, so this is where you can tell that I've watched the Great Pottery Throwdown. So you'll put odd things on like feathers and grass and God knows what else, just to get an effect on the texture on the bottom.
Yeah. So if you think about the science of heat, every mineral and item that's out there will put off a different gas, or will put off a different color, or will put off a different effect. And you can experiment with like banana peels and do different things. It's called sagat firing, where you wrap your piece inside a cocoon of all different things, salt and scraps from your kitchen, and you put that into a wood fire. It burns the casing off, and as it's burning that casing off, it's pulling all of that information into the side of the vessel. So you get some really unique surface features because of doing that. And then with raku, it's a very quick firing process. So you do a bisque fire first, and then you might apply a glaze or leave it, they call it naked raku, where you don't put anything on the surface. And then you heat it up to I think just over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And when it's that glowing red hot, you go in with tongs, pull it out of the fire and put it into combustibles to get a reduction treatment. So you put it into that can of combustibles, you put a lid on top of it to suffocate the flames. And that reaction is creating a reduction environment. So that really ridiculously heated piece is going to absorb everything around. It's going to basically melt everything around it into itself. So you're going to get an amazing array of different results, whether you're putting a glaze over top of it, or you're leaving it naked, depending on what you have in there and the environment that's created in there, the placement of your piece. If there are other pieces in there and they touch, you get a different result. And then you take the lid off, you pull it out, and you sit it on the ground, or you put it in water and do a flash cool. And then it's almost immediate that you get to see the results of your experiment. And it's just absolutely my favorite part. I feel like it makes my pieces so much more interesting and valuable and exciting because, again, I can't repeat it.
So I take it they sell well.
If I sold them, yeah, they'd sell real well. I keep them all. I hoard them. They're all mine.
So talking about selling, I mean, I've seen the pictures on your Instagram where you've got a market stall, is it? So is that something you do regular, or you travel around doing that once you've made enough stock?
Yeah, so I usually sign up for several markets a year. I don't do it every single weekend because I am a weekend worker. Like I try and do all of my pottery on the weekends. So giving up a Saturday to sit in a field and sell stuff doesn't work too well with my business plan. But it does give some validation. So a lot of the work that I'm selling there is more production work. So you're talking like repeated things. Like I do a lot of these Sasquatch pieces. It's all very similar with the glaze and same size, not a whole lot of experimentation. This is something that I know that I can get a lot of it done in a pretty quick turn and be able to make sales that fund the work. The other thing that I do are like these pieces that have different badges on the front. So I might do seasonal work where I have a snowflake on the front, or a snowman for Christmas, or skulls for Halloween, and it's orange and black. But the vessel itself is pretty standard for shape and form. Just you learn what you like, and you have muscle memory, so you can throw things pretty quickly.
I mean, so you could do things like Harry Potter and the houses and Game of Thrones, things like that. I think that kind of thing would sell well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I try to stay a little bit away from licensed items. I do a few nerd mugs every year. So I just did Zelda. I don't know if you saw those pieces.
Yeah, I did see that.
But one of the things that makes my business successful is that I'm willing to test new technologies to incorporate into my process. So very early on, I bought a 3D printer. So I make cookie cutters with features in them and text in them that I wouldn't be able to reproduce in the quantity that I would need to make it worth my while. So I 3D print my digitally designed files. I just purchased a resin printer to be able to get more detailed. Behind me, you see hanging on the wall is my extruder.
Yeah.
So instead of pulling my handles, which I used to do, I extrude handles, which saves me a lot of time in the studio.
Yeah. Those you can get different shapes, can't you? Like that when you push it down, it creates a different shape.
Yeah.
The handles and that. Okay.
Yeah, I can 3D print my own dies as well to like make different shapes. So you can, I'm sure your brain is like completely just going nuts in there. As the hamster is going crazy. Like what else can you make with that? Like that's the coolest thing. People make full forms out of extruded parts. So it's a lot of fun.
Oh, definitely. And it saves you money if you can do it all yourself as well. And obviously you can make completely unique things as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone wants to buy one of your vessels, how can they do that?
Well, I have an online store. It's called whitehallpottery.com. And it basically, if you want to ship internationally, you'll probably need to reach out to me because I'm not sure that the tool at the moment is allowing for international address. But we can work it out. I have shipped my things to Germany, to England. I shipped myself to England one time via a flight, but I took a bunch of pottery with me to Maker Central, which was a lot of fun, and delivered a bunch of work.
Oh, I found Whitehall. Right. What I'll do is I will, if you send me the link at some point, and I'll pop it in the description to the video. So anyone that's watching that wants to buy something from Heidi, it'll be there ready for you. Okay, that's right. I've got a list. You can see me list. Look up here. I've got a great big whiteboard above me. So, do you actually have you tried actually sculpting? I know you do vessels, but do you actually sculpt figures and things like that? I mean, I know other than the octopuses and things like that, but is that something that you're interested to?
You know, I did some in college, but it never was something that really spoke to me in a real way, like building an armature and then building on top of it and then having to cut it in half to get your armature out and then, you know, putting it all back together. That just all felt like so much work. And I never really, I'm sure I could do it.
Yeah.
It's just not something that was like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. Ben, my husband, is an incredible sculptor. He does a lot with clay. I mean, that was the whole reason we got the kiln to begin with, was because he was using a lot of Sculpey clay, and it's very expensive. So we moved to just like wet clay, like sculpting clay that we could fire in the kiln. And he's made a lot of pieces that way. Although he's gotten away from it because he's like, I just like to woodwork, man. I want to make cabinets and benches, and like he made me my slab table back here. But he, of course, like I just wanted a slab table, and he's like, I'm gonna make it like it's gonna have drawers and cabinets, and it's gonna have all this crazy funky joinery. And I'm like, can it just be heavy and not move when I try and throw a 20-pound ball of clay on it? And he's like, I'm gonna do one better. I'm gonna make you want to see it.
That's good. We've got a question from Gav. I was going to ask this already, Gav. So, Maker Central, will you be coming over for that next year?
I'm not sure. The last couple of times that I was looking at it, you know, it just kept getting delayed, and it just didn't feel like it was going to happen. And it's quite an investment for me to make it over. So I don't know. It would really have to be absolute that it was going to happen for me to take the time to figure out like the logistics of it all.
Yeah.
But
I think it's looking quite positive.
Yeah.
So Essential Handyman says, I never knew there were so many facts about crafty pottery. I'm learning stuff here.
Good. I'm so glad. Yeah, there's so much. I think that's why it stayed so exciting for me. I mean, I'm like you, man, where it's you know, you start doing something and then you're like, oh, but if I had that tool, if I had that expertise, I could do this thing. So then you go into this part over here, and then you're like, oh, but if I invested in this tool, we could do this over there. You know, it's like I said, it's one of those disciplines that allows you to be that kind of person that you're constantly thinking, constantly conniving. Like, well, what if I introduce this thing? Or what if I, you know, fired it to this different temperature? What would happen?
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so right, so Instagram, YouTube. I know you've got 250 subscribers on YouTube, 5, 10, 15, 17 videos. Are you planning on doing any more like videos on there, like how-to videos and that sort of thing? So I think that'd be really good.
Yeah, you know, I have a whole list of plans, but I'm sure like most of you that have a YouTube channel, it kind of falls to the wayside with like what you want to spend your time doing. I love making videos. I love coming up with ideas and sharing things, but I also look at the economics of it. Because I do work full time and I have a side hustle and I have a kid and I have a husband and I have a house. It's not really something that I looked at and said, this is worth me taking those hours to invest in. But it's definitely somewhere where like if I come up with a fun idea, I post it, but I'm never going to be that person that's like all in on YouTube, where like I want to be a YouTube creator. I like being able to showcase something that I've done and show the work, but it's not a place where I'm like,
I think, like you were saying earlier, one vessel. It's not an overnight transformation. It's not an overnight process. It can take weeks. So for you to make a video, that video is going to take weeks to produce. And then there's the editing and all that sort of things there. But I like looking at your the stuff you do on Instagram. I mean, there's loads of stuff on there. And with Instagram, you can just post a picture, can't you, and put a little description, and it's done.
Yeah, I get so many more sales that way.
Should we have a little look, actually? For those that don't have Instagram, we'll have a little look at Heidi's now. Okay, right, so nice amount of followers. There you go, there's the Zelda. I'm not sure what these two are, but
those are still Zelda. Yeah, it's the Hylian Shield and the Majora's Mask.
See, I was never into Zelda. I know what this was. I was more Mario, and that, Super Mario. Okay, so there's the stall. Oh yeah, these are the silhouettes mugs. Cool. That's good. I like that. What is it? It looks like a knitting texture, crochet texture on there.
Yeah, that's using. I don't think I have one. I have that one close to me, but I have I think they're lasered rolling pins to get the texture.
That's interesting. What's that? Is that a bowl? Is it?
It's a double-walled vessel. So during one of the lives that I did with Virtually Crafty, I showed how you can throw two vessels at one time, basically, and they're attached together. And so you have the inside that stays like stable, so you can put a plant in it. But the outside you can carve, so you can see the inner wall through the carving.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah,
so this piece in particular was for a local store that wanted some local artisan artwork. So they're going to put a plant in it.
Cool. That's really cool, that is. I love these.
Thank you.
I mean, even that itself, I mean, the process of making those is not simple either. Making sure they're all stackable. So.
Yeah, that's where calipers come in. You guys work with those a lot in a lot of different fields to make sure that you're building things to the right circumference.
Definitely. Oh, that's just stunning. Look at that.
Thank you. Yeah, this is more the work that's like more for me.
Love it.
Although I did sell that piece, I was really surprised.
So this is the ones we were talking about earlier. These are the octopus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see how you wouldn't usually. Well, I would drink from it all the time. I suppose you do, but really cool. So is that your lad there? Is it?
Yeah, it's my boyo.
Is he showing any interest in throwing something?
Oh yeah, constantly. When he comes into my studio, he asks me if he can make clay.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I had him on the pottery wheel, not last night, but the night before. We just do it on a night that, you know, it's bath night. Because he gets
right.
quite
'Cause
sloppy. Yeah.
it's totally covered in. So that's your kiln, I take it.
Yeah, that's the new one. It delivered this summer. I ordered it in January. It didn't come until August or July. When was it? Yeah, it was like July.
Yeah, there's loads of really cool stuff on there. So you're really active on the Instagram then.
Yeah, I find that it's much more advantageous for me. I get an immediate response with stuff that I'm working on. If people really get excited about something, they might say like, "Hey, I want this," so I just make an extra one while I'm making the batch, so I can like earmark things for people. So that's from a business strategy. That's probably much more worth my effort
Yeah.
than anything else. I think from a community standpoint and from a kind of like a personal building standpoint, I think the YouTube helps too, to be able to kind of talk through the process and kind of polish those chops. But yeah, Instagram is definitely the better platform for me.
Essential Handyman. I mean, if you want to get in touch with Heidi after, I'm sure you could give you a price.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so where are we? All right, so can we have a little tour of your shop? Is that possible?
Yeah, let me see if, I mean, this might be a little wonky, but I'm on my laptop, so. All right, so back there is where I throw. So you see my sticker wall and my pottery wheel right there. Yeah. And then that piece with like all of the plastic on it is where my slab roller is right now, but I've got some mugs drying there. And I've got, you know, some shelving and equipment to store tools. And then let's see. This is where I dry my work. So a good bit of stuff drying right now. And then my slab table that Ben made me. This is really fancy. And that's about it, other than my resin printer.
So it's a really
super sloppy studio.
Yeah, it's a really tiny work area. Is there any way you can get somewhere like larger outside, or build somewhere, or rent somewhere maybe?
I mean, that's going to be the goal. This year we had originally intended on enclosing. We have a pretty large side porch we were going to enclose, but because of material shortage and the cost of building materials, that kind of got put on hold. So I bought a kiln instead.
Yeah, why not?
I did think about renting, but the overhead of renting would totally just eat any kind of profit that I made from selling pottery at the moment. I don't have enough customers to really warrant it. Especially the thing that was going to offset it was teaching.
Yeah.
And I'm not at this point. I'm not really. I know that we're coming down off of the pandemic and we're getting into a better place, but I think that's probably going to be another 2 years before I feel comfortable like having public in my studio.
Yeah.
But I also like. I don't necessarily want to do that teaching experience where it's like everybody comes over, they get drunk and they play in clay. You know, I want to I would much prefer it to be more of a
serious.
Yeah, a teaching studio where if you want to come, you're invested in learning the craft and not just looking for like an evening out.
Yeah. Oh, totally, definitely. Right then, I think that's it. You've survived the invasion. I mean, we've gone over a little bit, but thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm genuinely, if I could convince my wife to let me get into pottery, I would. But I don't think that's going to happen.
I bet you'd be good at it.
Yeah.
You seem to be good at
Well,
most things that you touch.
I have had to go at the super sculpting. Yeah, sculpting.
Yeah, super sculpting.
Yeah, I made some little bits and pieces. I made some that JP likes actually, but we can't go down that road. But anyway, thanks a lot for coming on.
Sure.
And thanks to everybody that's come and given Heidi your support by coming and asking a few questions and just being here.
Yes.
I really do appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you in the next virtual crafty, because I think JP wants you on them all, apparently, according to his comment that he put down there earlier.
Yeah. This last one was my fault. I was unable to join everybody. I was at that show selling my work, so should be fine. I love to make time for it. It's a really fun day. I like to participate. I like to watch everybody else's ditties too. It's a lot. It's a really great day. And Jamie also posted. So my husband and I have another YouTube channel called Slap Stuff Together, and if you wanted to see the maker mugs that I've been doing, or I had done, I've done one for Skull and Spade 13, who was Jimmy DeRessa's kind of like sidekick for a period of time, but he's also full with tools. Brett. I also did one for Al and several other people. So if you want to see those videos, they're on there.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I knew there was some Slap Stuff Together. I just didn't. I didn't know that was you.
Yeah, that's me. That's me too. I'm just all over. I just I'm incognito.
Best way to be sometimes. Anyway, thanks a lot, Heidi. I really appreciate you coming on, and we'll speak to you soon.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care,
Thank
Rich.
you.